All right, today we're jumping into a book with a title that, well, you just can't ignore it. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. It's kind of famous for being the self-help book for people who can't stand self-help. And its whole message starts not with some big promise, but with two really simple, really weird words.
So, the entire philosophy of this book pretty much hangs on this quote, found on the tombstone of the writer Charles Bukowski. Don't try. I know, it's confusing, right? I mean, this goes against every motivational poster, every piece of advice we've ever been given. And that's the big question, isn't it? Bukowski was a huge success by the time he died. So why on earth would he want that on his tombstone? To really get it, we need to understand the man himself and a huge problem with the way we think about success. Okay, so let's start with the guy behind the quote, Charles Bukowski. Now, by his own account, he was a total loser, but he is the key to this whole thing because he found success in the most backwards way you can imagine. For decades, this guy was an alcoholic, a gambler, a terrible womanizer, and a completely failed writer. He had a dead-end post office job and pretty much drank himself to sleep every night. His success didn't come from some magical moment where he decided to become a winner. No, it came because he just accepted that he was a loser. He was brutally, unflinchingly honest about all his flaws, and that raw honesty is what made people connect with his writing. He never ever tried to be something he wasn't. And you know, Bukowski's story really shines a light on this huge flaw in our modern culture, something the book calls the positivity trap. This crazy, relentless pressure to always be happy, always be successful, always be positive. Think about it for a second. When you stand in front of a mirror and you force yourself to say, I am beautiful, what are you really doing? You're actually just reinforcing that deep down, you don't feel beautiful. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience. It's a constant reminder of what you think you don't have. And this can spin you out into a really nasty cycle. This is what the book calls the feedback loop from hell. It goes like this. You feel anxious about something. Then you start getting anxious about the fact that you're anxious. Or you feel guilty, and then you feel guilty for feeling guilty. We've been taught that these feelings are wrong, so we just get stuck in this spiral, beating ourselves up for having totally normal human reactions. This whole idea actually has a name, which Manson borrows from the philosopher Alan Watts. It's the backwards law. And it's simple. The more you desperately try to feel better, the less satisfied you become, because chasing something just hammers home the fact that you don't have it. The desperate desire to be rich makes you feel poorer and more desperate. The obsessive need to be loved just makes you feel more alone. The chase itself is the source of the pain. So what's the way out? Well, you've got to flip this whole thing on its head. The book argues that accepting the negative is what actually creates a positive experience. And it makes sense, right? The pain of going to the gym leads to better health and feeling good. The awkwardness of having a tough, honest conversation can build real trust in a relationship. Real positive change only happens when we stop trying to run away from the negative stuff. Okay, so if chasing positivity is a trap, then what does that mean for happiness itself? Well, the book suggests that our whole idea of what happiness is just wrong. To explain this, the book brings up the story of the Buddha. As a young prince, his father shielded him from all suffering. He had everything you could ever want, every luxury, every pleasure, but he felt like his life was completely meaningless. It was only when he snuck out and saw the reality of pain and sickness and death that he started on his path. The lesson here? Pain and problems, they're not just inevitable, they're actually necessary. And this leads to one of the most powerful ideas in the whole book. The goal isn't to have a life without problems. That's impossible. The goal is to have a life full of good problems. Think about it. A rich person has money problems, and a broke person has money problems. You'd much rather have the rich person's problems, right? The goal of life is to upgrade your problems. So here's the big takeaway. Happiness isn't a destination. It's not something you find and then you're done. It's an action. It's an activity. It comes from the process of solving the problems you've chosen to have. Happiness is this constant work in progress that you find in the struggle itself, not at some imaginary finish line. All right, now we get to the idea that might sting a little bit. This one's a direct challenge to a message that, let's be honest, we've all been hearing our entire lives. I mean, think about it. We're just drowning in images of the best of the best. The top athletes, the billionaire entrepreneurs, the most gorgeous celebrities. This nonstop fire hose of the exceptional makes us feel like being exceptional is the new normal. And since most of us are, just average at most things, it leaves us feeling insecure and like we're failing. But here's the great paradox. The people who actually become great at something, they don't do it because they think they're already special. They do it because they're obsessed with getting better. And that obsession comes from a deep down belief that they're actually not that great yet, and they could be so much better. So accepting your own, average, mundane existence isn't depressing. It's liberating. It frees you from the insane pressure to be amazing all the time and lets you actually get started on doing something that matters. So, okay, if problems are unavoidable and we're not all destined to be superstars, then what the heck are we supposed to do? This brings us to the real, actionable heart of the book. It's not about avoiding struggle, it's about choosing it. Let's look at the story of Dave Mustaine. He got kicked out of Metallica right before they became the biggest band in the world. So what did he do? He went and formed Megadeth, another legendary metal band that sold millions of albums. By any possible objective measure, the guy was a massive success, but he still saw himself as a failure. Why? Because the one metric he chose to measure his life by was be bigger than Metallica. His chosen value guaranteed his own misery. Now, let's flip that coin and look at Pete Best. He was the original drummer for the Beatles, and he got fired right before they blew up. And yeah, for years he was depressed, but eventually he came to a different conclusion. He said he was happier than he would have been if he'd stayed with the band. How was that possible? Because getting fired led him to meet his wife and have a family, and he decided that those things were more important to him than fame and money. He changed his metrics. He chose different values. And this is the heart of it all. It's not about what happens to you, it's about what you choose to care about, what you choose to value. Your values set the standards you judge yourself by. If you choose better values, you get better problems, and solving those better problems is what creates a genuinely better life. The book actually gives us a pretty clear framework for this. Good values are internal things that you can control, like being honest or humble or curious. Bad values are external. They depend on other people, like being popular or being right all the time or chasing pleasure. When you choose good internal values, you're choosing problems you actually have the power to do something about. So in the end, the whole book leaves us with this one simple question. Life is just one problem after another. You can't have a life without pain. It's not possible. So the most important question you can ever ask yourself isn't, what do I want to enjoy? It's what pain am I willing to sustain? Because who you are is defined by the struggles you're willing to have. The joy isn't at the destination. It's in the climb itself.